Yo, what's up? What's going on? So no real need for a big long intro. Today I'm going to be going through 3 tips that helped me nail 3 different kendama tricks, and this time they're all themed. They're all inward tricks. So those are the inward whirlwind, the inward lunar, and the inward J-stick. I think I'm starting to get these 3 tricks down, and I'm going to show you the tips that help me get here. So yeah, with that, do the bing, do the bang, do the boom, and we'll start with the inward whirlwind. Yeah, so inward whirlwind, this was one that initially gave me some troubles. I got the whirlwind down, the regular whirlwind down pretty quick, but the inward, I can't even say that, whirlwind. But the inward whirlwind is one that's a little more tricky, and it's because I tried to do it the same way I did the whirlwind, and I'm finding with these tips I'm about to share, you gotta treat them a little bit differently. So if you watch my regular whirlwind tip video, one of the things I emphasized was to kind of keep the earth turn and the ken flip as 2 totally separate tricks. So with that, the idea was you throw up the earth turn and then you go for your ken flip with that little thumb whack to get it to spin nice and quick, and then you'd be able to land the whirlwind. I found that with the inward whirlwind, it's almost the opposite. I feel like I have to treat this all as one motion to kind of feel the flow and get the trick to land. So the way I'm kind of doing that, one way is keep your earth turn really light. I find I was overshooting the earth turn far too many times, and it'd be spinning like 2 or 3 times before I ever caught the ken and got to do the trick. The other thing is, rather than treating that inward toss, because it's a little bit awkward, rather than treating it as like a throw that you have to throw and catch, I treat it as a bit of like a finger roll, and that kind of helps me feel the flow of the motion, get the trick out quick enough to meet the tama at the end. And hopefully if I demonstrate, you'll see what I mean when I say treat it all as one motion. Alright, so just like that, I'll have to cut to maybe a bit of slow-mo to help you see that the earth turn and the inward ken flip kind of come as one smooth motion. And if you practice it like this, you'll kind of start to feel the rhythm. And like I said, keep that slow, like less spinny earth turn in mind when you're going for these, and get that hand roll motion as opposed to a throw. Roll the ken really off your fingertips, and that'll help you nail this down. The last thing, which kind of goes for the regular whirlwind too, make sure you're holding your ken like a little bit lower grip. You don't want to be super choked up on the serrato here, or it's going to kind of get in the way when you're trying to do that hand roll motion. Maybe even just practicing this, kind of little roll before you start integrating the earth turn is a good way to get that down. Yeah, one motion, slow earth turn, and low on the ken for the little hand roll. Those are the inward whirly tips. Now let's go to the inward lunar. Yeah, so the inward lunar, switching over to the Kendama just for a little bit of extra grip on these lunars, but we're not going anywhere too fancy with this. We're simply going to be pulling up into inward lunar position. I'll show you that first, and then I'll get to why this was so difficult for me and how I nailed it down. There, so pretty simple like that, just pulling it up into this position, and then from inward lunar you could, go wherever you want. Try to just flip it in, or lunar flip, or etc, etc. We're focused on getting that inward lunar up and onto the tama. The first thing that took me a bit of time to figure out what worked the best was the position of the ken. So if I try to stand perfectly parallel, perpendicular, this way to the camera, if I have the ken like this with the cups to my left and right shoulders, you can see it's aligned with me like that. And then if I turn it this way, that would be like totally the other way of that. I like it somewhere in between, if you can follow. So yeah, you don't want the cups, facing you this way. You don't want the cups totally this way. If it's at about a 45-degree angle, I find with the pull up and a little bit of out motion that you need, this is about the position you want to start your ken from. So we've got that 45-degree angle-ish, and I used to have an issue where I'd always really want to pull outwards, and you need a bit of out. I thought you needed a lot of outwards pulling, but really I'm finding now that if I just pull it a little bit out with mostly upwards motion, you can see how the ken kind of climbs up properly. So make sure that once you have it at that 45 angle, you're giving it a light tug upwards. You're pulling the ken up towards you, and that'll keep it close to your body rather than what I used to do a lot, I don't know if anybody else has this problem, but it always used to be like way out here. I'd be trying to catch my lunars out here. The second thing, I'm gonna try to demonstrate what I used to do all the time. So you can see when the Ken is coming down, the way that my mind and eyes and whatever wanted to position the Tama was always a bit too far out. Now, you'd think I would have learned, but I didn't really realize that I was always catching the front edge of the Ken on the Tama, and that's why it was kind of bumping out of place like you saw there. I found when I consciously made an effort to like pull the Tama in underneath the cups a bit closer than what felt comfortable, closer in terms of this being far, this being close to my body, I'd pull it in closer and the cup would, naturally grab onto the Tama better. It was getting better landing spot, if you will. And yeah, consciously making that effort to keep the Tama closer to me helped to find the Ken's place in that lunar position. The last little thing before I show you a couple more times, any pull-up trick, you could face this issue where you're pulling up the Tama and I don't know if you can see that, but the bead and the string kind of pops out. And that gave me a lot of trouble learning inward lunars because maybe I'm just dumb or didn't listen to what other people on the internet told me. But there's this neat little trick where use your ring finger or your pinky finger, whichever feels better, and you can kind of put it on the string right under the Tama here like this. So then when you do pull-up tricks, you're keeping the string from, popping out and causing you problems. So if we combine all of that, we were at a 45-degree angle. We're pulling more so up than we are out. We're keeping the Tama close to our body to, meet the cups in the right spot. And we're putting our little finger right here. Maybe you have big fingers. We're putting our whatever size fingers we have right here under the Tama to keep the string from poking out and getting in our way. And with all that, we should be able to nail the inward lunar. And just like that, perhaps another little thing to note, make sure you give yourself enough room, like don't have your fingers way up near the bevel. Give yourself enough room to land it, and of course, the stickier the paint is, the easier that'll be. With that there, we can move on to the last trick, which, that would have been cool to land, which is the inward J-stick. Now for those inward J-sticks, I'm back over to the Zach mod just because the bevel is a little bit more beat up and it kind of lends itself better to landing J-sticks or inward J-sticks. Now let me tell you, when I figured out this trick that I'm about to show you, I don't know if it's just me, maybe this only works for me, I don't know, you gotta try it, but I felt like absolute god. I had descended into this universe where inward J-sticks just worked, and I didn't know why, because every time I tried them before they were so difficult because I tried to do them this one certain way and now I do them this other way, and like half the time they just land by themselves and I don't even do anything. I promise I'm not like good at them, but it just goes in when I do it this way, and let me show you that. So with the regular typical J-stick, we all know you're kind of doing this little flicky motion, and if I can hit one for you here, or not. If I can hit one for you here, you can see it's kind of like it's like a little bit of flick and a little bit of up and down. Now, when we try to translate that to an inward whirlwind, an inward J-stick, I always tended to do this motion. I'd bring it up here and hopefully you can see the bevel. I try to flick like this. And if you look, when I do that, it's suitable, like it looks like it can land, but a lot of times I felt that the spike was kind of like, not flicking out when I was spinning my hand like this. Again, look how the bevel is like flicking with my wrist, and this is how I was always trying to do them. Now, on a total whim, not really knowing how to do inward J-sticks and not seeing any tutorials really that made it any easier for me, I tried to experiment and I found this technique really improved my my rate of landing inwards and feeling comfortable with them. And that is, so you see the bevel, instead of doing this like wrist flick where you're trying to like flick the inward J-stick, I would hold it at about a 45, experiment with the angle, and just do this kind of up and down motion. Maybe this looks a little strange, but it's like a little pulse to like throw the Ken rather than like physically flicking it. It's just like this, and this little pulse and the angle that it's at will handle the whole spinning of the Ken. So I'll try to hit a couple for you here and really just study the way I'm like moving my hand up and down rather than flicking it. And yeah, I find it's a lot easier to both track the Ken, and have it, follow the right speed, because sometimes with the flick it would just go all over the place. I find this makes it a lot easier. Boom, you see that? Boom. 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 Do you see what I'm saying? Like, I don't know what it is. Actually, I kind of know what it is. I feel like it's a combination of the fact that once you find the right angle, this method flips the Ken consistently, so you can get used to where it's going to land, as opposed to this where I find you're kind of guessing. And two, for some reason, like since I'm like, if you're doing this, right, the bevel like ends up facing away from you, and then you got to like find it. For some reason, when I'm doing this motion, like obviously the bevel stays like looking me in the face basically, and I find it a lot easier to track the spike and land it in the bevel. Maybe this is just me, but I'm telling you, my numbers, not that I was keeping track, my numbers of inward J-sticks landed went like, actually I don't know which way the screen faces, so this way or this way. It went to the moon with Dogecoin when I started doing this. So try the method if you struggle. If you struggle with inward J-sticks, of instead of trying to flick them, just hold the Ken at about an angle, something like this, and just pulse it rather than flicking it. See the difference? Flick versus just a little boom. Would have been good if that one went in too. But yeah, with that is 3 different inward tricks. I'm really starting to enjoy inwards more now. I used to, they used to kind of annoy me, to be honest. It's like inward whatever is just the bad version of that trick that I didn't want to do. But like the inward whirlwind feels so smooth in that one motion. Inward J-stick is actually possible now, and inward lunar too. Something I finally discovered about myself, that I could do that. Anyways, I hope these tips kind of helped you out in some way or another. Give them a try. Don't knock it till you try it. The pulsy J-stick motion, I swear it works. And with that, yeah, peace. Have a nice time doing stuff. Yeah.